The Sandman is out. If you haven't checked it out yet, this is a massive, I mean, the score is big, the film is big, the world we're in is infinite. The effects are incredible. What was your first, how was this presented to you? And the main title theme is, it fits so perfectly with this. How quickly did you jump on that, and how did you find that sound of the show?
Well, I prevaricated, as I often do at the beginning of things, because I'm quite a fast writer. I can write relatively quickly, but that's a blessing and a curse, because unless you've got good self-editorial discipline, you can sort of say to yourself, especially with a show like this, where you got 10 episodes with loads of music, you can sort of say to yourself, oh, done, tick, where I think a big part of the creative process for anyone doing anything, poets, writers, artists, is the ability to kind of say, well, that doesn't work. And sometimes you don't realize that, until day 2, week 2, month 2. The famous thing of, working late at night, reviewing your work in the morning and being horrified. I think every creative person has kind of gone through that. And so, the show, given its enormity, it had, as is fitting for a show with that sort of vast aspirations, it had quite a big post-production schedule. So I got in, I wouldn't say early, but relatively early, certainly early enough to have some quite long and kind of getting under the surface conversations about what the show is, well, what the comics were, what the show is, what the characters are, what we want to feel, what we're trying to do for an audience, and just have sort of conversations like this, not getting too much into, themes or what instruments. We had those conversations, but we didn't have to start there. And that was great for me, because I didn't really know much about this universe. I was aware of it. But for the beginning of my process to actually be a kind of learning the folklore, the mythology of all of this was, it was vital that I did that. And that, I think, helped me. It didn't give all the answers, but it certainly, learning what any film or any TV show or any game, learning the kind of the nuts and bolts, the DNA, the genetic material, kind of looking at that squarely in the face, I think is an absolute necessity to so that then I feel like then you can start like fumbling around on the keyboard and trying to come up with something. And it really was Dream's character, that opening theme that you hear at the very beginning of the first episode. I felt that when I landed on that, and that took a while, and it took, a lot of people to kind of hear it and embrace it before it was signed off on. Neil and David Goyer, Alan, the showrunner, Netflix, Warner Brothers, DC Comics. I'm sure millions of other people I don't even know were in the mix on all this. But when I found that, and it took a while, a few iterations, when I landed on that, I knew it was going to be my friend for navigating through what is very eclectic storytelling. The first 7 episodes are so, we're jumping around. We're kind of genre surfing and moving from one location, one historical time period, from reality to present tense, unreality to present tense. So that would have been difficult to do without knowing I've got at least one thing that can be with me through all of that. And then, of course, with that comfort, then I can start looking at the environments that I'm in and saying, okay, here we are in hell. What's the music for hell or for Lucifer? Here we are with Joanna Constantine. What's her theme? But knowing that I've got this through line with Dream that was my. I think if I hadn't started in episode 1, and it's funny though, because episode 1 is an episode where Dream is kind of captive for most of it. He isn't. He doesn't. I don't know if he has any line. No, he does towards the end of the episode, but he is not. In any sense, a traditional. He's very seldom a traditional hero figure. And given the fact he's locked up and sort of semi-dying in the first episode, it makes him particularly kind of unique and possibly particularly challenging to say, well, this is his sound, this is his identity. but it had to be figured out, and I think ultimately that helped me, thread a needle through what was a fairly, ornate or
yeah. I mean, because
crazy.
that was always the sentiment about this as a series was how do you, the book has. How do you adapt this? How do you adapt this into a series
I said it's
and
unadaptable,
have
isn't it? That's what,
all of the jumps make sense? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's what I've read. I mean, I tried to keep a lot of the kind of fan comments and noise out of my ears until we were done, because I thought, it's impossible to please
Right.
everyone, and there'll be a lot of opinions out there because people have tried to make a movie of this, tried to make a show at least once before. And I think there was a verdict that this is unfilmable. So the fact that it has been filmed, and it does seem to, I think from what I can tell, having now, after years of kind of shunning social media, I've just dipped my toe in because it seems like the sort of project where you kind of think, well, why not?
Dangerous.
Yeah, well, no, I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm well aware where the delete
You
account
think you're
button.
dipping your toe in the pool and it's lava.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. But I would say, from my investigations, it seems like the fans like it, and my mum, who's 80, who is not a fan,
Very
I
well
think
reviewed so far. Yeah.
very well reviewed, and I think it's equally as appealing to people who don't know the background story and just coming to this as fresh drama. I think it entertains. I think it keeps people leaning in and invested. I think there's something fresh about it, and I hope there's more to come, because I mean we've barely scratched the surface of all the stories Neil's written. So I think it'd be really nice to see what Dream gets up to next, and I don't know anything about what might be in the future, but one assumes there's going to be lots more crazy scenarios, characters, and landscapes to score. So crossing fingers.